We have an ample amount of national news for you today, but we will start locally with some of the things that we have talked about before. Nope, not on tape. I know we're going to talk about crime again in the city of Columbus, but that disclaimer that we play before some Salem shows, as I said yesterday in segment one, portions of the following program have been pre-recorded, does not apply to this show. There is, though, a certain sameness to the incompetence that abounds in the Franklin County non-justice center and non-justice system. We'll have to reserve judgment on whether justice will be done in a case that still sticks with me to this day. I don't know if prosecutors in this city, those who work for Gary Tyack, get cases that cross their desk and they never forget the face of the victim, never forget the name of the victim, never forget the parents of the victim. But I've never forgotten the particulars that pertain to 21-year-old Kevin Sobnoski from the Youngstown area. You might remember young Mr. Sobnoski being the victim of a senseless shooting at a Sheetz gas station out by John Glenn International Airport in close proximity to Halloween 2 years ago. He was here in Columbus with his friends to go to a Halloween party. It was 3:45-ish in the morning. They were going to fill up their car with gas at Sheetz. And for that crime, Kevin Sobnoski was murdered. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. One of the people who participated in a shootout between rival gangs. I don't know if they're organized gangs or disorganized gangs. They're gangs in terms of the collective number of people, all young black men who were also at that Sheetz gas station at that time, decided that they would escalate or settle a beef between these two groups by randomly firing guns at each other across the Sheetz parking lot into the Sheetz store. And Kevin Sobnoski, while he sat in the passenger seat of his car, thinking he had avoided the absolute worst fate that could have befallen him, was instead shot in the back of the head by a bullet from the gun of 18-year-old Camarion Ross. It's not a conventional bullet. Camarion Ross had a pistol that was equipped to fire the same size bullets that are fired from an AK-47 rifle. So Kevin Sobnoski, thankfully, did not really know what happened to him before he died. Kevin Sobnoski's story sticks with me because he's the kind of people on which we base our future. Hope. Young man, honor student, soccer player, member of his church, full ride scholarship academically to Youngstown State University. Camarion Ross, unfortunately, is an all too common story in the city of Columbus. Someone who, at least on this night, allied himself with other criminals, other gang members. And why did he shoot Kevin Sobnoski? Because Camarion Ross was with a group of people who had a beef with another guy that they spotted in the Sheetz gas station when they went in there. How long did it take the jury to convict Camarion Ross, who pleaded, you'll love this, self-defense as the reason why he was not guilty of murdering Kevin Sobnoski? Self-defense because Kevin Sobnoski was a threat to him? No, just because Camarion Ross felt threatened by other people shooting at him. And we now know how ridiculous this was and why the jury deliberated only 35 minutes, which I didn't even think you could elect a jury foreman in 35 minutes and render a verdict in the case. 35 minutes. Hi, who do you want to be the foreman? Okay, I vote for him. Okay, I vote for you. All right, what do you guys think? Guilty or not guilty? Guilty, times 12. Camarion Ross will be sentenced in September by Judge Stephen McIntosh, who I certainly hope is not as incompetent as the worst judge in Franklin County, Michael Holbrook, who, by the way, yesterday showed us how incompetent he is by defending his title as the worst person ever to sit on the bench of Franklin County Common Pleas Court. Yes, allow me to digress for a second. Do you know what Judge Michael Holbrook meted out as what he determines a fitting sentence for a murder that he himself termed cold-blooded and senseless yesterday? Cold-blooded and senseless. What are the circumstances of the murder, Bruce? Well, the victim, Frank Mitchell, 66, he's the perpetrator. Dominic Braxton, age 40, is the victim. I thought, the minute I read his age, I'm like, wait a minute. No, the young guy was the guy who got murdered here. Yeah, Dominic Braxton, 40 years old, murdered. A lot of life ahead of Dominic Braxton, theoretically, if he doesn't live in Linden, the Hilltop, near East Side, or other areas of Columbus that have become shooting ranges under the stewardship or lack of same from Mayor Andrew Ginther. Frank Mitchell walked up on Mr. Braxton while Mr. Braxton was engaged moving furniture and shot him in the face. Mr. Mitchell was not convicted by a jury. He admitted he did it. And Michael Holbrook, saying, well, that is cold-blooded and senseless, decided that a fitting sentence for Frank Mitchell for premeditated, cold-blooded, senseless murder is, can you guess, life in prison? 66 years old, life in prison, the rest of his life in prison. What, has he got 20 years to live? No. Come on. 7 years. Max 10 and a half. 7 years, max 10 and a half. That's what Michael Holbrook thinks is an appropriate punishment for walking up on a guy, premeditated, shooting him in the face, and murdering him. A 40-year-old man. Wow. Back to the case of Kevin Sobnowski. Why did Camarion Ross fire his pistol equipped with ammunition that would also be fired from an AK-47 rifle? Because when Mr. Ross, the murderer, walked into Sheetz near the airport on October the 30th, 2022, he and his companions saw another guy, Taiwan Sullivan, whom at least one person with Ross, the murderer of Kevin Sobnowski, had bad blood because of some prior incidents. And so, instead of saying, there's a guy in there I don't really like, let's get the heck out of here, let's go find another Sheetz. No. They went to their cars, armed themselves, and went back in the store. Mr. Sullivan, sensing he was in danger, left the store himself and started to drive away. But you can't just drive away. You look like a coward unless you get your own gun out and start firing. And he did so. So then people with Ross, the murderer of Kevin Sobnowski, started firing back at Sullivan with an AR-15 rifle. Now, Ross, who had been inside the convenience store, this is the murderer of Kevin Sobnowski, I'm quoting from the Dispatch story, ran outside before turning back and firing from his pistol at the gas station. The guy they had to beef with is driving away. Why would he turn and fire into the gas station? But that's not where he hit Kevin Sobnowski with the bullet that killed Kevin Sobnowski. Ross, the murderer, got into his vehicle and saw Sobnowski's vehicle, the college boys from Youngstown State, saying, this is more than we bargained for. We just wanted to fill up with gas and head back home. Sobnowski's vehicle was trying to get out of the parking lot. Imagine that. There's a bunch of kids shooting at each other. Let's get the heck out of here and get back to the safety of Youngstown. The rear passenger door of the vehicle was then opened by Mr. Ross, who stood up and fired more than a half dozen shots toward the vehicle in which Kevin Sobnowski was riding. Mr. Sobnowski was sitting in the front seat. He was hit by a bullet that went through the back window and hit him in the head. Ross said, I fired shots because I was scared. I believed the vehicle could possibly still be shooting at us. They weren't shooting at you. They were trying to get away. Ross said he fired several rounds, but did not empty the 30-round magazine on his firearm because he thought the first 8 rounds he fired were enough. Well, you were right about that, Mr. Ross. They were enough to murder a guy who had made great life choices and had a wonderful life ahead of him with loving parents and great potential and people who still grieve over his death to this day. Mr. Ross made a lot of bad decisions. The decisions are his own. He should own them. But they are decisions that are, in many cases, I will admit, foisted on young people in our community because of the policies that have been put in place and prioritized by Democrats. Why? Because they serve the community? No, because it helps them stay in power. And we'll have further evidence of that